Welcome YouTubers to another episode in my Grammar Hero series. In this video, I'm going to be working out practice problems from the mathematical knowledge subtest of the ASVAB. Before I do that, I just want to make a few general comments about the ASVAB itself. In case you didn't know it, the ASVAB is a test that's given to everyone who desires to join the U.S. military. More specifically, it's a test that's broken down into 10 different subtests, including general science, arithmetic, reasoning, word knowledge, and so on. As you can see here, it consists of 145 questions, and for that you have 154 minutes to complete it. What's more, the ASVAB is a CAT test. That is, it's a computer adaptive test. In case you don't know how that works, it basically means this. The first question you're given on the test is moderate in terms of difficulty. If you get it right, you get a question that's slightly more difficult. If you get it wrong, you get a question that's slightly easier, and so on throughout the entire test. I just want to highlight here that the mathematics subtest consists of 16 questions for which you have 20 minutes to complete it. On the entire ASVAB, you're not going to be given any aids such as a calculator. So as you'll see in this video, I'm going to make an effort to work out everything by hand, and in addition to doing that, I'm also going to make an effort to explain exactly what I'm doing. Last, I want to point out that in addition to receiving a score for each of these subtests, you're also going to receive a score called the AFQT. AFQT stands for Armed Forces Qualification Test, and this is the score that basically says either yes, you are qualified to join the military, or no, you're not qualified to join the military. As a rule of thumb, you want to score a category 3 or above, and these are percentile ranks. So, for example, if you score 50 for your AFQT, that, in other words, means you scored better than 50% of all the test takers. Okay. So all that said, let's go ahead and get started with this guided practice. If you have any additional questions about this test, the best person to talk to would be your recruiter. Okay. Okay, so question 1. If the sum of two angles equals 90 degrees, what are they called? Okay, so this question is testing your knowledge of the definitions of angles. In general, there are 5 definitions of angles with which you need to be familiar. The first is this. If you have an angle that is 90 degrees, that is called a right angle. If you have an angle that measures less than 90 degrees, that is called an acute angle. If you have an angle that's greater than 90 degrees, that's called an obtuse angle. Okay, so those are 3 different angle types. As far as when you add 2 different angle types together goes, let's take a look at this. So a straight line is 180 degrees. It measures 180 degrees. When you have 2 angles, I'll call this angle 1 and angle 2. When you have 2 angles that add up to 180 degrees, they're called supplementary angles. Okay, again, if angle 1 plus angle 2 equal 180 degrees, they're called supplementary angles. By that same token, if you have 2 angles, I'll call this angle 3, and this one angle 4, that add up to 90 degrees, they're called complementary angles. Again, angle 3 plus angle 4 equal 90 degrees, so they're complementary. The sum of two angles equal 90 degrees, so we know they're going to be B complementary angles. Okay? With all these definitions, you should be able to answer any question or variation of this question that's thrown at you. Okay, number 2, let's scroll down for it. Oh, come on. Number 2 says round 10,335.48787 to the nearest whole number. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this out. Okay, whenever you're asked to round, you need to be aware of this rule. If the number to the right of the number you're trying to round is 5 itself or greater, that is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you round up. If it's 4, 3, 2, or 1, you round down. Okay? In this case, we're being asked to round to the nearest whole number, which is right here. In other words, we're being asked to get rid of all these decimals. So we're looking at this 5 to determine how we round. We look at this 4, okay? And we say to ourselves, does this 4 cause us to round up to 10,336, or do we just stay at 10,335? Well, as I just said, if it's 4 or below, you round down. So this is just going to be 10,335, which is the nearest whole number. So we're done. And by rounding down, I mean you just stay with this number. You don't round down to 10,334. You just stay with this number. Okay? Let's go up to question 3. The sum of the measures of the angles of the shape below is... Okay, so as we can see, this is a quadrilateral. That is, it has 4 different sides. The most common quadrilateral is a square. We all know a square has 4 right angles. Okay? But let's take a step back and think about triangles, for example. The sum of any triangle is 180 degrees. So if you have a triangle that looks like this, it's going to add up to 180 degrees. If it looks like this, it's going to add up to 180 degrees. No matter what type of triangle you have, it's going to add up to 180 degrees. Well, that principle holds true for quadrilaterals as well. We just have to say to ourselves, what is the sum of the interior angles of a quadrilateral? I don't know why I'm messing up that word today. So let's take a look at a square. 90, 90, 90, 90, that's 90 times 4. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 9 is 336. So we know that the sum of the interior angles of a square measures 360 degrees. If this principle holds true with triangles and quadrilaterals, then we know that this, whether it's a rhombus, a square, or a rectangle, it's going to have the sum of its interior angles equal 360 degrees. So by using a little bit of logic there, you could have worked through this problem. You didn't have to do any math whatsoever. Okay? Number 4, in an equilateral triangle of 2 sides have the sum of 50 inches. What is the length of the third side? So an equilateral triangle means that all the sides are equal. This side is equal to this side, is equal to this side. Okay? we're told that the sum of two sides equals 50. So side 1 plus side 2 equals 50. Again, these sides are equivalent, so we can go 2s equals 50. Divide both sides by 2. We know s is going to be 25. That is, one side is going to be 25. Since this is an equilateral triangle, we know if this is 25, this must be 25, and therefore this must also be 25. Okay? Let's go to the next page. Come on. Okay, let's zoom in. Okay, number 5. What is the volume of an aquarium that measures 18 inches long by 6 inches wide by 11 inches high? Again, this is the mathematics knowledge test of the ASVAB, so you're not allowed to have a calculator, nor are you permitted to have a formula sheet. We just need to understand that we're looking for volume in this case of a rectangular prism, which looks like this. Let me go ahead and give you a rough sketch here. Okay. The area of a rectangle is length times width. To find the volume, you have to multiply it by something else, namely its height. So the volume, the volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height. Okay? In this case, we know the length is 18, we know the width is 6, and the height is 11. So we just plug this into our volume formula and move on. So volume equals length is 18 times width of 6 times height of 11. We should know our times tables for 11. Anything times 11 is just that number repeated. So I'm going to write this as 18 times 66. Let's go ahead and work it out off to the side here. I don't know why I'm writing at an angle today. It's just the way my pen's set up. Just bear with me. I'll fix that in a second. 6 times 8, of course, is 48. Carry the 4. 6 times 8 is 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. Drop down a 0. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. Add. 8 plus 0 is 8. 2 plus 6 is 8. 5 plus 6 is 11. So this is going to be 1188 inches cubed, which is B. Okay. Let's scroll down to number 6. What is the circumference of a circle that has a radius of 5 inches? So since we're talking about circles, I'm going to let you know all the different types of formulas you need to know for circles. The first of which is area. There's only one formula to find the area of a circle, that is pi times radius squared, or pi r squared. For circumference, which I'm going to denote with a C, there's actually two formulas. The first of which is this. Circumference equals pi times diameter. The second one is this. Circumference equals pi times 2 times the radius. Okay? As long as you can keep these two formulas straight, you should get these questions pretty easily. What's more, you want to pay attention to what pi is going to be equal to. Again, you're not allowed to use a calculator, so you're going to have to use pi as 3.14. Okay? And before I move on, let me just say this. Circumference is this. Let's say you were to start right here. Circumference is the distance you walk around the outside edge of the circle, whereas area is the face, the entire space that makes up the face of a circle. Okay. Again, let me just add this. Radius is halfway across the circle. Diameter is the full length across the circle. Okay? And that's a pretty bad drawing there, so just bear with me. So in this case, we're asked what is the circumference of a circle that has a radius of 5 feet. Again, we're given the radius, so we're going to use this formula. Let's go ahead and plug that into our equation. Circumference equals pi 2, and we know the radius is 5. Circumference equals pi. 2 times 5 is, of course, 10. So this, in other words, is this. Pi is 3.14 times 10. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can work it out the long way by doing 3.14 times 10, and I'll show you how to do that. Otherwise, you can just realize that when you multiply something by 10, it shifts its decimal over to the right just one space like this. So this would actually be 31.4, which is right here. Since we're practicing our arithmetic, this is how you multiply decimals. You would shift this over 2 spaces to make this 314. You count how many spaces you shifted it, because at the end you're going to add it back into the left. So 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. Bring down a 0 since you're starting a new number. 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 is 4. 0 plus 1 is 1. 3 plus 0 is 3. Bring in your 2 decimals. 1, 2. 31.4. Same result. Okay? What is the perimeter of the right triangle below? Again, this is a right triangle. Perimeter of a triangle is just this. Perimeter equals side plus side plus side. But as you can see here, we're actually missing this third side. This third side, it turns out, is called the hypotenuse of the triangle. The hypotenuse of a triangle is the side that's directly opposite of the right angle, which is the one we're missing. So in light of that, we're going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem to find x. Pythagorean theorem says this: a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are the legs of the triangle and c is the hypotenuse. So you can think of 15 as a, 17 as b, and this x as c. Let's go ahead and plug these in. So we got 15 squared plus 17 squared equals c squared. Let's work these off to the side so we don't make any mistakes. Okay, 15 times 15, that's 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 7. Bring down a 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So this is 225 plus, let's do 17 times 17 now. 7 times 7 is 49. Carry the 4. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Bring down a 0. 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 1 is 1. This is 0 plus 9 is 9. 7 plus 1 is 8. 1 plus 1 is 2. So this becomes 25 plus 289 equals c squared. Let's go ahead and add those up. Five plus 9 is 14. carry the 1. 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Carry the 1, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we're left with 514 equals c squared. I'm going to flip these. C squared equals 514. We're going to square both sides to get rid of the square. So this becomes c equals the square root of 514. Okay? So we're very close to knowing what c is. But that said, this isn't a perfect square, so we don't quite know what this is going to be, but we can use some rules of thumb to help us get here. So we know the perimeter and the answer choices are these, okay? So let's think about it this way. 17 plus 15. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1. That's 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 32. So we know 15 plus 17 is 32. So we know this missing side is going to be all these, possibly all these minus 32. Let's go ahead and see what these are, just so we can see what gets us close to this missing side. 48 minus 32, and I'm going to round here. 48 minus 32, 8 minus 2 is 6. 4 minus 3 is 16. Again, the hypotenuse is the longest side of a triangle, right? And this is saying that the hypotenuse would be 16, which is less than 17. We know that this is not a possibility, okay? So let's do 65 minus 32. 5 minus 2 is 3. 6 minus 3 is going to be 3. Okay, let's take a look at 30 squared. 30 squared is actually 900. We know that this squared is 514. So we know that this is too big and this is too big. By process of elimination and some common sense, we know that this is going to be the answer. Okay? So again, the ASVAB likes to be tricky and force you to think through hard problems. Again, this would make this measure to be about 30. Again, that's 900. That's way too far apart from 514. So again, just use some logic to work through these. You don't necessarily have to do hard math all the time. Number 8, if 2 plus x is greater than or equal to 8, what is the value of x? So in this case, we're trying to solve for x. That is, we're trying to get x by itself on one side. To do that, we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. 2 minus 2 is 0, so we're left with x is greater than or equal 8 minus 2, which is 6. We read this as such: x is greater than or equal to 6. X is greater than or equal to 6. I totally missed that one. Alright, let's go to the next page. Zoom in. Which of the following fractions is the largest? Okay, what's half of 5? Half of 5 is 2.5, so we know that 2.5 over 5 would be 50%. So we know that this is going to be less than 50%. It actually turns out to be 40%. Let's jump right here. 7 divided by 10 is actually 70%. You should know that. This one, again, 4 over 8 would be 50%. So we know this is going to be less than 50%. But let me show you how to work out one of these. You read this as 3 divided by 8, that is. Okay. Now you're dividing 8 into 3, you have to drop an extra 0 here to make it work, since 8 can't go into 3. When you do that, you add a decimal here. How many times does 8 go into 30? 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract. This becomes 6. So we know this is going to be 30 some odd percent. Now we have to look at this one and say, what percent is this? Okay? And we can see right away, 70% is bigger than these two. Now we have to look at this and say, what percent is this? So again, you read this as 13 divided by 16. 13 divided by 16. Again, 16 is bigger than 13, so we can't divide that out. We have to add an extra 0 and bring up a decimal. So what times 16 is going to get us close to 30? 16 times 10 would get us 160. 16 times, let's do 16 times 8. 8 times 6 is 48. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That gets us very close. So we know that this is going to be 0.8, which is going to be 80%. So we know this one is 80% something, which is bigger than 70%, and we're done. Again, don't waste time working these out fully if you don't need to. Okay, number 11, we have x to the 4th times, and I don't like how they use this here. Usually when you have problems like this, it looks like this. X to the 4th times x to the 5th times x to the negative 3rd. Whenever you have like terms that are multiplied with exponents, you simply add their exponents. So like a to the squared plus a to the 3rd would simply be this: a to the 2 plus 3, or a to the 5th. So let's apply that here. This would become x to the 4th plus 5 minus 3, x to the 9 minus 3, x to the 6th. Again, that's your law of exponents, which I just told you right here. Okay? Number 10 looks hard, but it's not really, as long as you know what the squares are. This is the square root of 25, which we know is 5. The square root of 64 is 8. So this just says 5 times 8, which is 40. Okay, another problem that's in regard to exponents. So let me add another rule to exponents. Let's say we had a squared to the, let's say, 3rd. Now you can see that this is not multiplied by something. Instead, it's raised to another power. So this would be a to the 2 times 3. Okay, when we had a squared plus, or when we had a squared times a to the 3rd, we added them, namely a2 plus 3. Now, since this is an exponent raised to another exponent, we multiply them. So this would be a to the 6th. Okay, in addition to having the law of exponents here, we also have to remember PEMDAS. That is our order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. In this case, we have parentheses and exponents. We do the parentheses first. So again, this becomes y2 plus 3 to the 6th. In other words, y to the 5th to the 6th. In other words, y to the 5 times 6, y to the 30. Okay? Let's go to the next page. Zoom in. So for this one, we have 5 plus 3 times 6 divided by 2 times 8 minus 1 equals 3 plus 7x. Again, PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, addition, division, addition, subtraction. In this case, we have parentheses and multiplication. As we can see here, we do parentheses first. So let me rewrite this down here. Okay, so I'm going to work out everything in parentheses first. 5 plus 3 is 8. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 minus 1 is 7. 3 plus 7 is 10. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to look for exponents. I don't see any. Now I'm going to look for multiplication, which I see 8 times 3 times 7. Let's go ahead and work this out. This becomes 8 times 21 equals 10x. Okay, 8 times 21. Let's see what that gets us. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 168 equals 10x. To get x by itself, we divide both sides by 10. Okay, and again, earlier I mentioned whenever you divide something by 10 or multiply something by 10, you move the decimal place to the right. Now we're dividing by 10, we move the decimal to the left, so this is going to be 16.8. And if you needed to work that out, you could do this. 168 divided by 10. And you would say 10 goes into 1. How many times it doesn't? 10 goes into 16 just once. 10 times 1 is 10. Subtract. 16 minus 10 is 6. Drop down your 8. 10 goes into 6. It doesn't. 10 goes into 68 6 times without going over. 10 times 6 is 60. Subtract. 68 minus 60 is 8. Drop down a 0. Since you drop down a 0, you add a decimal. 10 goes into 8 or 88 times. Okay? This way is much easier, but if you need to, you can work it out. Again, 15 is testing, again, your knowledge of PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, one thing I didn't mention regarding PEMDAS is this. Multiplication and division are treated as equals. So you work multiplication and division from left to right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. We have 900 times 3 divided by 2. So what I'm going to do is work out the top and then divide out by 2. 900 times 3 is 2700 divided by 2. If you want to, you can think about it this way. 27 divided by 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 times 2 is 1. Subtract, that becomes 0. You drop down your 7. 2 goes into 7 3 times without going over. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract. This becomes 7 minus 6, which is 1. Drop down to 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So, in other words, we can see that this is going to be 1350. Okay? Because if 2 goes into 27 13.5 times, we know it's going to go into 2700 1350 times. If x equals 3, then x to the third times x equals. Okay, again, testing your knowledge of the rule of exponents. Again, a to the third times a squared would be a to the third plus 2, or a to the fifth. So let's take a look at this one. We're told x equals 3, and we're given x to the third times x to the 1. So this is going to be x to the fourth. Let's just plug in 3 for x, so this becomes 3 to the fourth. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is going to be, 7 times 3 is 21. 681. Again, 3 times 3, 3 squared equals 3 times 3, which is 9. 3 cubed equals 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. 3 to the fourth equals 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That is 3 times 4 times. It's 81. Okay. Number 16 is a statistics problem. 7 horses are running a race. How many different ways could the horses finish the race? This question requires you to know that this is basically asking you what is 7 factorial. And 7 factorial is this: 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay? Basically this says the first time you arrange the horses in 7 different ways, there are 7 available options. After that, you have 6 different ways you can arrange the winnings, 5 different ways, 4 different ways, 3 different ways, 2 different ways, and then 1 different way. Okay? Let's go ahead and work this out. 6 times 5 is 30. 4 times 3 is 12. Times 2 is 24. Times 1 is just 24. So this gives us 30 times 24, and that's going to be times 7. So this is going to be 30 times 24 times 7. Let's get this result and then multiply it by 7. 0 times 4 is, or we can say 30 times 7 is 210 times 24, because 30 times 7 is 210. Let's work it out that way. It's a little easier. So 210 times 24. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Bring down a 0. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Let's add. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 is 4. 8 plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. So 5,040 different ways you can arrange those. Again, 16 is probably the hardest question in this practice. You just have to know how to interpret statistics when you're asked them in different ways, and that's just something you have to take a statistics class for. Okay, almost done. Again, remember this concept. A squared raised to the third power becomes a 2 times 3. 3 equals a to the sixth. This is the same thing. This says 7 squared squared. So this is going to be 7 to the 2 times 2. Oops, I keep doing that. Or 7 to the fourth. Okay, so again, 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 7 times 7 would be 49 times 7. 9 times 7, of course, is 63. Carry our 6. 7 times 4 is 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. So this is 343. to get 7 times 7 times 7 times 7, which is 7 to the 4th. We take 343, multiply it by 7. 7 times 3 is 21, carry the 2. 7 times 4 is 28, 29, 30, carry the 3. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 3 is 24. So this is 2,401. Again, testing your knowledge of exponents. Number 19, 7 yards plus 14 feet. These, of course, are in different, have different standards or measurements. So we got to convert either feet to yards or yards to feet. Well, there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So that means 7 yards would be 21 feet. So 14, this question is basically 14 plus 21, which is 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 1 is 3, 35 feet. Okay, this tests your knowledge of some basic algebra here. So I'm going to make this big so it's nice and easy to see what I'm doing. The way you work this out is via the FOIL method. How that works is you take this x, you distribute it here and here, and then you take this 4 and you distribute it here and here. So let's do that. X times x, x squared, x times 2, 2x, 4 times x, 4x, 4 times 2 is 8. Combine these like terms, so x squared plus 4x plus 2x is 6x plus 8. X squared plus 6x plus 8, which is right here. Number 20, what is 14% of 42? So in other words, we take 42, multiply it by 0.14, which is the same as 14%. Okay? To multiply decimals, you make the decimal whole number by moving this decimal place twice, and we'll add those decimals back in at the end. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. Bring down a 0 since we're starting to 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 4 is 4. 0 plus 8 is 8. 6 plus 2 is 8. 1 plus 4 is 5. Bring those two decimals in. 1, 2. This is 5.88, which they round to 5.9 in their answer. Okay. Next page. What is the mean of 10, 28, 50, 71, and 91? Again, the mean looks like this. Basically, it says all the numbers added up over the total number of numbers will give you your mean. So we can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So we know that it's going to be all these added up over 5. So let's go ahead and do that. 10 plus 28 plus 50 plus 71 plus 91 all over 5. Again, there's 5 numbers. Let's go ahead and add this up. 50 plus 10 is 60. Plus 28 is going to be 88. So that leaves us with 91 plus 71 plus 88. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 8 is 10, carry the 1. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 8 is 18, plus 7 is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So this becomes 250 over 5. We know 25 divided by 5 is 5, so 250 divided by 5 must be 50. Okay? So what is the sum of the angles of the shape below? As I mentioned earlier, all triangles add up to 180 degrees. It doesn't matter what they look like. This is strictly a definition problem. Okay, number 22, negative 14 divided by 7. So this is testing your knowledge of the signs chart, which looks like this. Okay, this basically says a positive times a positive will give you a positive, or a positive divided by a positive will give you a positive. Positive times a negative will give you a negative, or a positive divided by a negative will give you a negative. A negative times a positive will give you a negative. A negative divided by a positive will give you a negative. A negative times a negative will give you a positive. And a negative divided by a negative will give you a positive. That is, this signs chart works for both multiplication and division. We have negative 14, so this is negative, divided by positive 7, so we know our result's going to be negative. 14 divided by 7 is 2, negative 2. 72 is what percent of 108? Okay, let's think about it this way. 72 over 100 would be 72%. So we know this is going to be 72 over 108 is going to be slightly less than 72%, but it's not going to be less than 50%, and it's not going to be less. It's definitely not going to be 30%. So that gives us two options. Just by looking at it, you can see it's going to be closer to 66 than 71. But this reads again 72 divided by 108. And we say to ourselves, how many times does 108 go into 72? It doesn't. We have to add a 0, so we add a decimal when we add a 0. Now I'm going to multiply 108 by 6. See if that gets me close to 720. 8 times 6 is 48. Carry the 4. 6 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is 4. 6 times 1 is 648. Okay? Let's say I multiplied 108 by 7. 7 times 8 is 56. Carry the 5. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5. You can see that if we did this, it would get us too big of a number, whereas this 6 will get us close. So without doing any other math, we know it's going to be 60 some odd percent. There's only one answer choice like that, namely this one, so we're done. Last problem. Let me zoom out a little bit. Solve for b. 3b equals b. Or 3b equals 3. That is, we want to get b by itself. We're going to divide both sides by 3. This crosses out. This becomes b equals 3 divided by 3, which is just 1. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. If you found it helpful, please give me a thumbs up. I should be posting a couple more of these videos soon, so feel free to subscribe and put the bell notification on so you don't miss those. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut you guys loose. Konnichiwa.